I'm Christine. I'm here to help you and walk you through the entire process of this exciting Let's Get Cozy December project. I'm so happy for you joining us. You've probably already opened your box if you're on to the tutorial part, so let's get started and get our items out. Inside, first thing you'll see is your starter kit. If you're a brand new subscriber, welcome, and this is your tools you will use throughout this project as well as many others. So make sure you keep these in a handy place and ready to reuse them. You will also get the contents of your entire cozy kit found right here. So we have beads, we have our paint, and I don't have a third cute jar like you guys have, but that's my red paint. A reusable Let's Get Cozy stencil, snowflake for our beaded garland, jute, and our Let's Get Cozy sign. So let's get right to it. I am going to do this the best way I think is possible. I'm going to start with the sign, do the vinyl, and then we're going to leave the edges open of the sign until we're ready to paint it with the gray. And we're actually going to thin this gray paint down and make sort of a stain out of it instead of a paint. But you have lots of options you can do. So very first thing I'm going to do is take my paintbrush from my starter kit and paint the inside of the sign all in ivory. You have the ability to choose your own colors if you would like as well. Notice I'm not taping anything off yet, but you will need painter's tape later on. So make sure you don't get too close to the edges with this paint and get paint on it. Just get close enough. We'll see how your cutting in skills are in just a little while. So I'm only getting this about that far away from the edge, just so we can, we'll then cut it in later. If you feel like doing it a different way and cutting it in now, cutting the paint in, you sure can. The trick to good cutting in is having a good bead of paint when you're pulling it along the edge. If you are confident you can do that now, you can definitely do that. If you get some on the edge, go ahead and you can get it off with just an X-Acto knife, with just scraping the edge of the board or this border. But main thing, let's just get the ivory on there in a nice even coat, painting it in one direction. You're gonna notice when I paint big surfaces like this, I go all over the place like that. But then in the final, in the end, I do smooth it all back out. So I do make it nice in the end. Okay, so let's let that dry and then we'll do our vinyl stencil. Back with step 2. The sign ivory base color is dry. I did stay a little bit away from the edge again, so we'll finish that up on another step. So before you put your stencil on, it's really important to have a nice smooth surface area, because any lumps or roughness will allow paint to leak underneath that stencil, leading to bleeded words that we have to fix it a different way. So let's prevent that now by sanding a little bit over this wood. When you paint over wood, it pulls up the grainy parts of the wood because paint has moisture in it, water, and it pulls up those grains. So we're just going to sand those right back down. Okay, so that's all sanded. Now I'm going to take the stencil And again, these are reusable, so make sure that if you want to reuse them, don't let the paint dry on them. Super handy, awesome stencils. Keep this backer. You can put the stencil right back on there, but we're going to take it and just place it on there. You can kind of see around the edges like that this is even and this is pretty even, this is even. Once you have it set, firmly press it down. I just love these things. I'm so excited that we are able to use them. Okay, so I got that down. And then we're going to take our gray paint, or another color if you choose. Oops, I forgot to wash my brush, but it's in water. Just clean that out real quick. Okay. Yes, I have a whole studio down here. I just flung my paintbrush on the floor because that really gets liquid out very well. Just saying, but only do it if you can do it. It might make a mess if you don't. Okay, if you do it in a place where you have nice stuff, don't do it around your couch, please. I can't replace couches. Okay, take your gray paint. When you're doing this, when you're painting with a stencil, I will tell you this right now, less is more. The more paint you use, the more it could possibly bleed underneath. So when I start this, I am going to brush off my paintbrush. I'm not going to have a ton on it, and then start painting over those words. If you are worried about how it looks, you can gently pick it up and check. But just keep in mind, you have to be able to press it back down. So if you check places where you got paint already, you're not going to be able to press it back down. But that worked. Okay, and it looked good. So I'm not going to be using a ton, but I want to get it covered nicely. If you do get blotches and bubbles, we can teach you how to fix it too. If you're worried about getting too close to the edge, just put a piece of painter's tape down. And I kind of like the look when my stencil doesn't fully fill a word. It kind of makes the letters look worn, rusticy, so I kind of like that look. I don't mind it. A little tip with the stencil, have a cookie sheet ready to go, and you can just place the stencil right into a cookie sheet of water, and it will soak, and that will clean it up really easily. So that's done with the gray. Put my brush back in water, and I'm going to peel up the stencil, and it's beautiful. I'm going to let this dry. There it is. Less is more. Don't use a ton. So there's the word. I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to wash this, and we'll be back for step number 3. Okay, back with step number 3. We are going to stain the sides of the frame now. So in order to do that, we need to protect what we just painted in the ivory part. And we're going to use painter's tape to keep all of this protected while we stain. Anything that you do run over on the edge down here with the when you paint with the gray stain, we can fix with ivory paint later. So I'm going to have you put painter's tape all along, right along the inside of that frame, and then press it down good and solid in the corners. Again, good and solid in the corners. Use your nail to dig that in there nicely. And then take an X-Acto knife and cut that extra piece of tape. So then it just leaves that perfect corner. You can even use the X-Acto blade to push it down a little bit in that tight corner. So cut that, protect it, and then we're going to Keep doing that all around all 4 edges. That'll give us a nice protection to protect this while we stain the sides. Okay, sides of the sign are all protected. Inside here for our stain, for the gray stain that we're going to use. So you can make your own type of stain by using gray paint and a little bit, or any color paint, excuse me, latex paint, and watering it down. So I'm going to take the rest of my gray that I have, put it into a bowl. And to get it out of the jar really well, I can add a little tiny bit of water to this. And put the lid back on securely and shake it. Don't shake it and make a mess, please. Shake it up good, and that'll water that part down. It might just be enough to water down this whole bowl. Not quite yet. We will also use this paint for our beads. So you'll be using that one more time. I'm going to use my water again and clean that out a little bit more. And besides, you're going to be cleaning these jars out and reusing them anyways, right? Because they're just super cute. And you can reuse all of them. And we love that. That's why we switched to the glass jars, so you guys have them to reuse. Okay, so that's pretty good. Take my paintbrush, and I'm not going to get too much water out of it because I need it in this anyways. And mix. Okay, I want just a little bit more. And when I roll my beads around in it, I want it to be a little more thin too. So that'll work for both your stain and for your beads. Okay, so there's that. And then if you have gloves, you can use gloves to do this. It's just latex paint though, so it will wash off your hands if you don't have gloves. Okay, and then take any kind of rag or t-shirt, old t-shirt, whatever you have to start staining. So we're just going to put a little bit of that on there, and I'm going to start with the inside and just rub it right on there. Just like a stain. I want to see the wood grain through because that's the look I'm going for here. Okay, finished up the staining around all 4 edges. Just want to make sure that looks even on the front frame that you're going to see a lot of. And I think it looks awesome. I'm not going to take my gloves off quite yet, but I will wash off my fingers so I can touch my X-Acto. Okay, now I'm going to peel up the painter's tape so I can double check that edge. But again, we didn't finish the edging yet And part of the reason why is because now, if anything does leak through, we can fix it easily. Because we have to cut in that ivory still. So, nothing leaked too far at all. So that works awesome. Oh, paint doesn't want to come out, or painter's tape doesn't want to come out of the corner. Gloves. Sometimes they're not handy, but they're handy. Oops. Okay, got a tiny bit of paint on the sign right there, so I'm just going to take my rag and wipe it off. Okay, but now I just need to let this frame dry, and in the meantime, while that frame is drying, we're going to get started right away on our beads without taking a dry break. So we're just going to set this to the side. It'll dry fairly quickly. Actually, it already feels pretty dry, but it will dry because it is just watered down latex. So I'm actually going to set it right there so we can stare at how cute it is. Okay. All right, before you get started with your beads, I want you to finish cutting in and final painting the ivory on the sign. So take your dried sign and your ivory paint and just a small paintbrush that you can use to paint in those edges that we didn't paint before. So just gently and slowly paint in those edges. All right, all the edges are cut in. The sign is finished being painted. If you want, you can sand up the edges a little bit. I always like to make that wood grain show a little bit more through, so I do prefer the sanded look. Okay, love it. I'll get some of that dust out of there when it's dried fully. So I'm going to set that to the side and work on our beads. So after we're done coloring the beads, we'll string the beads and finish the rest of it. So we'll see in a little bit. Okay, for the beads, if you were with us back in September, we had a pumpkin duo kit, and in that kit we did a beaded garland as well. Everybody loved it so much that we decided to do it again for December, and they're super fun to do anyway, so we wanted to do another one. But you're going to get a packet of beads and your 3 colors. So have 3 bowls, and put your paint into each bowl, water it down, and then you're going to swirl your beads in there in the different colors and get them fully covered. The reason why we water it down is so it covers the beads much easier. If you use just the thick latex as it is right now, it would be too thick and it would be hard to cover the beads. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. There was a lot of different tips shared in our group in September from doing the beaded pumpkin trio. But I found that we're going to use 3 bowls, water down the latex. So I'm going to put my red in here. And my red doesn't come in a cute jar because we don't have them at the time of this video making. But you will have yours. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of water to it and make a mess all over my table. Clean the rest of that paint out nicely. Okay, there's empty. And I think I'll paint part of my stencil, my snowflake. I'm just gonna dab it like that because if I drag my brush along edges, it'll drip paint over the edges. So I'm gonna dab, holding my paintbrush vertically to the snowflake. Okay, I like that. Wash that off. Let that dry, and then I'll do the white. Or, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So you have one more color. We'll add this ivory. I'm not going to go too much because I don't want it to get too watery. That looks pretty good. Okay. For the beads, you guys have 3 sizes of beads. I only have 2, so I'm just going to split mine up into thirds and go from there. You can choose to put your small ones in all in one, however, what pattern you want in your beaded garland, just depends on how you're going to dye your beads. So I'm just going to split them up into groups of 3. Okay, beads have been split up, and now I'm just going to swirl and fully get those beads covered. So I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, I'm going to let those dry and finish my snowflake on the other side. Let's see, my paintbrush is too saturated with different colors, so I'm just going to use a different paintbrush and paint this white. We will let those dry and then come back and do the twine and snowflake, and we'll be all finished. See you in a little bit. All right, beads are done. They're all dried. We are ready to start making our beaded garland. So take your jute string, and the very first thing we're going to do is make our tassel. So if you haven't done one of these before, definitely follow the directions with doing this. So undo a bunch of string and try really hard not to mumbo jumbo your string up, because I did last time and it was a mess. So I'm just going to slowly undo my string. Okay, that should be about enough for the tassel, but I'm not going to cut it just yet. Make sure you have your hot glue gun plugged in because you will need it in just a moment. So for the tassel, you are going to take and wrap a bunch of string, jute, around a wide part of your hand. So kind of open your hand up like that, just like that, and wrap a bunch of string around it. Lots and lots. The more string you do like this, the thicker your tassel is going to be. So, yep, I didn't have enough. So I'm just hopefully going to pull and it won't make a mess. All right, so I'm going to cut it. And then just work it all the way around so it's kind of straight. Now, take the end piece here and tie it back through and just tie a knot. If you can't get this piece to work, that's okay. We're just trying to keep this top piece so we can stick a string back through it in the end. So just keep that separate and nice and tight together. Okay, so there's that piece, and now we will take and make our corded part that goes around the top of the tassel, and then we'll cut all these at the end when that's done. So again, you're going to need a bunch of jute. Okay, and then I'm just going to start wrapping this right around. Cut it, and I'll tie it right to the beginning piece that stuck out a little bit, and then I'm going to hot glue, just dab hot glue it. Because that'll ensure it stays glued or stays tied together. Lick your finger before you touch your hot glue, and then I can press right on that, and it kind of cleans up the hot glue look. It doesn't look so icky. I can cut these ends off now because I know it's not going to come undone because that hot glue will hold that. So now we just cut through this entire piece, and that will give us the tassel. Voila! There's the tassel. There's some pieces that didn't get cut. Cut them. If there's some long pieces, you can give it a haircut. So I'm going to give it a haircut. Just strip it off. So there is our finished tassel. You still have a loop through here where we can get and put the end of our beaded garland through. So there's the tassel. And now we'll move on to beading our garland. You're going to want to take about a 9-foot, so about the arm length of your string, and then double it back. So take a full arm's length of string, and then do it one more time, about that. And then we will double this. So we are working with 2 pieces. We're going to string our garland onto 2 pieces of string. So double it, and then make sure that if you want your snowflake tied on, make sure you tie it on just by putting it through that doubled up end and adding it there. And then you can actually take and tie it. Okay, tie it there so it stays in place. So I'm just going to tie a little knot right there. So my snowflake will stay in place. I have double-sided, I did paint it. Okay, and then for your ends, so you can easily string the beads, take and make a hot glue gun or a glue end, and so glue that all up. Not too thick because you don't want it to be too thick for your beads. Give it a second to rest. Lick your fingers before you touch it. The glue will not stick. So lick your fingers first and then roll it. And you're making like the end of a shoelace end called an egglet. And once you have that, it'll be stiff enough to do your beads. You can use tape, however you want to get this through your beads. It does have to be long enough so where you can push still. So if it's not long enough, just add more glue, roll it again. Okay, so now we can bead. I'm not going to be too picky on how my beads are, but I'm just gonna go gray, white, red every time and just go that way. I'm not necessarily gonna switch between colors. So I do need to have a little more glue so it's a little bit longer and harder to push through. That should be good. Remember, lick your fingers before you, because then it doesn't stick as bad either, and it allows it to be moved and rolled. Okay. And if you totally mess it up, I'm pretty sure I gave you plenty of string. You'll be able to just cut it right off and start over. So that should work. You'll probably get some paint still on your string, but that's okay. Okay, dab a little bit of hot glue so it holds that knot. Again, you saw me lick my fingers first so I don't touch hot glue. That is a saving grace sometimes. And there is the finished garland. And clean up my table. With our sign and our finished Let's Get Cozy winter project. You can store this in or display it in like a bedroom area all year long. It can be winter, it can be any season if you want to change up the red, whatever you would like. I think this is going to be very versatile and I can't wait to see all of the ways that you customize it and make it your own. Until next time, see you in January. Happy New Year. Bye.